Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back in another video from Clyde. Been a while, but they're always worth the wait. I like that he doesn't feel the pressure to keep uploading because when he uploads, they're always massive bangers. This one's going to be cool. I do believe Chuck is in this as well because I've seen him post on the community part of his channel that is involved with this. So that is pretty cool, and this is an interesting discussion. Why Goku vs Ichigo is far closer than you think. I still think Goku wins, but it's you know it's a very debatable topic. And also, if you want to see my videos early, click that join button, become a member, and you get other stuff. Right, let's check it out. Oh, the goat! What a legend! What a legend! Oh, and I'm watching the Dragon Ball series on my Patreon as well.
Ichigo Kurosaki, substitute Shinigami, and main character of Bleach, versus Son Goku from Dragon Ball, arguably the most iconic protagonist in manga history.
Yeah, pretty much.
And master of wanting smoke 24-7. With Bleach's Season 3 on the way, Dragon Ball Super continuing in manga form, Dragon Ball Daima coming soon, and hopefully an announcement of Dragon Ball Super Season 2, I believe this is the perfect time to compare these two main characters, especially after the way Bleach and its characters have been depicted with its anime-only changes, thanks
Pretty damn cool.
to the supervision of series author Mr. Kubo.
I'm so glad I caught up with the anime because it's so good, and I love seeing the changes, seeing the Bankai come out from, what are they called? You know, the people that were completely useless in the manga, but then like they're actually doing stuff now.
Bleach's return has opened many eyes to a lot of the very overpowered abilities the series retains, and has led to a lot of anime fans comparing these two in a hypothetical fight. For many years, people would always do this with Goku versus Superman.
God.
Then it was Naruto,
What a debate.
Saitama, so on and so forth. Naturally, as Ichigo has gotten stronger throughout his series, this comparison has followed suit. Before we get deep into this huge video, if you want to see more videos like this from me, all I ask is that you do me a small favor, subscribe to my channel and physically click like on the video. I'm close to 250,000 subscribers, so it would mean a lot if you do this. Content
Link will
like
be in the
this can
description to the
sometimes
original
take
video.
me around 2 whole
Go
months
there.
to produce,
Boom.
so clicking those few buttons will help me out a lot, and I promise to deliver far more in-depth videos like these if the support is shown. Also, following my Twitch would be greatly appreciated. It's linked below. I stream there a fair bit. When you think of Dragon Ball, chances are the first thing that comes to mind are its fights and powerful characters. The series is world famous for its powering up, huge explosions, and fast-paced battling.
Oh, God.
Though time and time again, I always see this series being downplayed and misinterpreted so much that it frankly surprises me how much the average anime fan doesn't actually know about Goku when they speak of him. And I'm not talking about every single detail, just the surface level information about him. Goku has become such a polarizing piece of the ever-expanding board of fiction that he's now essentially, in essence, the Superman of Japan, with May the 9th officially being recognized as Goku Day in Japan. And even with his massive popularity all around the world, many are always eager to try and name.
I was trying to explain to like someone at work that like Dragon Ball is that popular, people watch it like a sporting event. He was like, "Nah, I don't get it. It's ridiculous." Like, no,
next character to be able to beat him. Not a day goes by that I don't see people saying Saitama beats Goku every time Saitama does anything new in his manga. You've likely even seen this amongst One Piece fans because of Luffy's new Gear 5 form. Hell, it even happens with characters like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. This same phenomena is seen quite a lot in combat sports, where very dominant pugilists are poked at and critiqued with absolutely everything they do, and some people will tune in just to see them finally lose. It's one of the many reasons people used to buy Floyd Mayweather pay-per-views back in the day. His style was seen as annoying to deal with, or boring quotation marks, and along with his trash talk, it gave an incentive to pay to see him lose. Conor McGregor was very much of the same cloth back in 2013 to 2018. It's impossible to deny that for many individuals out there, the ass-whooping delivered from Khabib Nurmagomedov was quite cathartic to watch. And with that, that's a position Goku was in regards to power scaling. So many people just want to see him lose. He's so famous for being overpowered within his own series. Goku is the poster boy for anime battles, and Dragon Ball is almost a measuring stick to compare new main characters to. With a matchup like this, the first thing which comes to my mind when comparing these two series is their speed. One of the primary aesthetics of the battles in Bleach are its character designs and how they move around in combat, which a lot of the time incorporates techniques involving incomprehensible movement.
Yeah.
There's a certain edginess
Just
to Bleach
can't
that's
see it
hard to
happening.
verbalize, but you get what I mean if you're a fan. All the way back in Chapter 51 of Dragon Ball, not Z or Super, we have characters like Master Roshi destroying the moon with what would now, in current Dragon Ball, be considered very casual ki blasts.
Yeah, it's just not.
So casual that merely tapping a table can achieve
Boom,
even
there is
more than
split
this.
planet. Boom.
In Chapter 14 of Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo blows up the moon even faster, while stating Gohan's Great Ape form could destroy the Earth from simply raging around. And then, we have characters which dodge these attacks in combat, and also block them with ease. In the Saiyan Saga, Raditz even makes a joke that one of these attacks only singed his leg hair.
Which is crazy.
Goodness, you've managed to singe some of my leg hairs.
Now, the distance between the
Boom.
Earth and Moon in Dragon Ball, as confirmed by author Akira Toriyama, is reflective of the distance in real life, which is 384,400 kilometers,
Right, okay.
or 238.
That's so cool. When you get confirmations like that, you can literally then actually scale it. Wow.
1,855 miles, which if you use the timing shown in how the
Speed of
anime
light.
depicts it, this would still hold a similar measurement of time. This is relevant because light in real life takes roughly 1.3 seconds to hit Earth from the moon.
Okay.
1.3 seconds is extremely important because characters in Dragon Ball easily become 2 times, 5 times, 10 times,
Faster
20 times,
than that, yeah.
50 times, so many times stronger and faster as the arcs and transformations progress. So if you said the ki blast took
power
5 to
creep
10
is
seconds
real.
to hit the moon, purely just to argue against the feat, then mathematically characters would hit light speed once Kaioken is introduced into the story anyway,
Oh, yeah.
which is a massive low ball going off of that argumentation. Light in Dragon Ball may also move a lot faster than it does in real life, as this was showcased when the light from the Goku vs Beerus fight spread across the universe in seconds, and reached so far that it hit the Kaioshin realm. To explain why this is a big deal, since 1 light year is the equivalent of nearly 6 trillion miles, it would take roughly 22 million years to travel 600 light years on a space shuttle and visit Kepler 22b with our current technology, which is one of the closest Earth-like planets we can currently observe. Light itself
Whoa.
can travel around the Earth 7.5 times in the span of 1 second, and Dragon Ball
educated.
characters may have been operating.
Sorry, like, I'm just gonna point out, I've hurt my chest, my shoulder also hurts. So if I kind of like, if I laugh or anything, and I'm like, that's why. You know, I gotta suffer for my art.
At a linear speed of light which surpasses this speed. Remember, this is fiction, so if Toriyama wanted to write it so that tennis balls can randomly explode like a SAR bomb, who would we be to argue
Yeah,
against
we
it?
can.
He
It's his
dictates
thing.
the law and nature of his created verse. The characters fly and shoot lasers from their hands, so it's really not that crazy. When you see characters do stuff like this continuously throughout the series, I don't think the law of relativity is even relevant
Does
here.
not matter. No.
These are
Not
incredibly
at all.
simple feats for the start of original Dragon Ball and Z, yet if you put these characters into a lot of different anime worlds, they would cause massive problems, if not just straight up solo the verses. Even the old school Dragon Ball movies contain some very crazy power scaling, like the Lucifer Sun feat, that early in the series. And if you look at the manga, Goku broke a manga panel,
Broke a panel.
that moved so fast he was able to put on a pair of sunglasses before the solar flare could hit his
Yep.
eyes. As mentioned before, characters like Raditz appear, who are
I love
able
little
to beat
stuff
up
like that.
Goku and Piccolo. Then Vegeta and Nappa arrive later, who are easily in the range of 5 to 30 times stronger than Raditz, and they are able to destroy planets with no problem at all, while also firing attacks at each other that move linearly with their
no
increasing
diff is the
power level.
terminology. Isn't it, you
Goku, from his
youngsters use?
adventures on Snake Way and training with King Kai, learns techniques like the Kaioken, which can multiply his speed and attack power by up to 20 times his base form. This would then later be shown capable of being mixed into other future transformations. Goku's base form reaches a level of power where his power level is listed at around 90,000 against Captain Ginyu, as opposed to 924,
Which is such
which was
a
his
leap.
power level during the
Jesus.
Raditz fight, and then 3 million during his fight against Frieza in his base form. Officially speaking, to blow up a planet, you roughly require a power level of around 10,000. However, this could be argued to be far, far lower, because full power Raditz would definitely be a planet buster, considering how much stronger he is than both Piccolo,
Yeah,
Master
true.
Roshi, and even King Piccolo, who said he could destroy the world. And these characters are dodging attacks which are faster than light travels from the Earth to the Moon, as even if you say it took 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to hit the moon. Vegeta and Nappa are that many times stronger than King Piccolo and Master Roshi that they would still be light speed planet busters at the most bare minimum interpretation, as mentioned earlier. The higher your power level, the higher all of your stats usually are. We've even seen this correlate to Mind Hack's resistance plenty of times in the story. During the Namek saga, all of the main cast become hundreds of times stronger than before, with Goku and Vegeta going from power levels in the range of 10 to 30,000 at their peaks, to Goku, while not going all out, having a power level of 180,000 when fighting Captain Ginyu, using Kaioken times 2. Then, when he was healed and fought Frieza in Super Saiyan, his power level was officially stated to be around 150 million, due to his power multiplying by 50 times 3 million. And Frieza's is confirmed to be 120 million in the Daizenshuu 7 databook. In the most linear sense, which is also an arguable lowball, you could do some basic math and just divide 150 million, Goku's power level when in Super Saiyan, and divide it by 8,000, the official power level of Goku when he arrived to fight Vegeta and Nappa, which would make Goku 18,750 times faster than light, and if you compact that same mathematical equation into power output, well, Frieza is shown to be star level with ease, and King Vegeta can simply wave his hand, destroying multiple planets with no difficulty, which is still consistent with the feats presented in the Saiyan saga, if you want to claim that King Vegeta scene is in canon, which it is. It's also stated in the Daizenshuu databook that Vegeta is capable of destroying the Earth anyway. Power levels, though are rarely used later on in the story, still have a linear showing of power they follow, and this gives us concrete ways to scale the characters in Z. Regardless of those who want to deny their validity, until they were dropped, they did make both narrative and mathematical sense. But they're not just limited to who can create the biggest explosion. Frieza is a menace, because he has attacks like his Death Beam, which seems to ignore standard defensive durability. There are other abilities like the Destructo Disc, which can't be blocked unless you're of a certain power level compared to it. As an example, Frieza can fly, breathe in space, survive a planet exploding while cut in half and out of ki, and he himself is thousands of times stronger and faster than King Vegeta. He still got his tail lopped off. To add to that point too, the subject of Goku being able to breathe in space is a very inconsistent one to say the least. We've seen scenes where he can't, scenes where he can, and then scenes where he can breathe in a space where there's literally nothing present at all whatsoever. Bardock also has a couple of weird scenes where he seems to be flying in space and fighting, so it's really up to how you interpret that, but we do know for certain that Frieza can in fact breathe in space. Because of the race of alien that he is, this allows him to do so. To also explain the durability issue with certain Dragon Ball attacks, if we compare Krillin's official power level on Namek to Frieza's, mathematically you would need to be roughly 20 or so times stronger than someone to actually block the Destructo Disc, with Frieza, Cell, and Jiren all showcasing how this works within Dragon Ball. Goku even used a weird ability to create a grave with his eyesight when Vegeta dies by Frieza's attack.
That was cool.
And Majin Buu was able to create a portable toilet just from nothing. Depending on which interpretation you go with for King Vegeta's power level, if his power level is above 10,000 but under 18,000 as it's stated in the Bardock Father of Goku special, Frieza would be 12,000 times stronger than him, or 6,666 times if you use the Dragon Ball Z, the legendary Super Saiyan Broly movie power level. The idea of being 2 times, 10 times, or even 50 times stronger than someone is absolutely mind-blowing, but imagine being 10,000 times stronger and faster than a character who can move at multiple times the speed of light and blow up planets with a casual wave of his hand. In the mainline story, Jace was in absolute shock at the idea that Vegeta could ever reach a power level near his, as pretty much every Saiyan had never reached the level of even the Ginyu Force, an elite squad of Freezers. I do want to clarify, King Vegeta's power level is very debated upon due to various translations and canonicity, but regardless, the multi-planetary feat is garbage compared to Frieza, and someone like Vegeta with his full-powered Gallic Gun could easily do this, even just based on math.
Against Frieza, Vegeta had a power level of 500,000, which was 50 times that of his father's power level, right?
During the introduction of Future Trunks, King Cold states that Earth isn't even considered to be a normal-sized planet in their universe, but in fact a small planet, adding further supporting evidence to how strong Vegeta and his father are, and yet still at ants compared to not just base Frieza, but his higher-ranking underlings. Most of the underlings of his army are casually blowing up planets with 10 times that of Earth's mass too, and all of that which I just explained is below Super Saiyan Goku, who, as we all know, defeats Frieza. Not Super Saiyan Goku from the Cell Saga, not Super Saiyan Goku from the Majin Buu Saga, not Super Saiyan Goku from Dragon Ball Super. All of that is just Namek Saga Goku.
Crazy.
Day 1 Super Saiyan. Even
Day
mathematically,
one
like I
Super
showcased
Saiyan.
with the linear speed, the same could be multiplied for planet-busting ability to equate them in the thousands of times planetary category. That's if you'd like to take a far more hyper-literal approach. Here's a crazy thing to consider. Raditz' power level was officially listed at 1,500 and thought to be 1,200 by Nappa. Goku's power level against Frieza in just his base form, which I mentioned earlier, was 3 million. If Raditz can blow up one single Earth, base Goku against Frieza could destroy 2,000 to 2,500 Earths.
Oof.
What if he were to go Super Saiyan? Well, this
my
gets
God, this is so
multiplied by
cool.
50 times,
Yo.
meaning he has 100,000 to 125,000 planets worth of output. If we were to perform that same equation, based on 10,000 being a prerequisite to blow up a planet, we'd still reach 15,000 from dividing 150 million by 10,000. Depending on how you personally perceive things too, Frieza in the anime survives Namek exploding so far outwards that it reaches solar system levels of distance visually. However, for now, I'll leave the Goku portion here, and we'll return to talk about his future showings. So, how does Ichigo Kurosaki match up to all of that?
Let's go.
The substitute Shinigami of the Soul Society. Well, for starters, I gotta be clear when I start this video. In this video, there won't be any Bleach characters or invisible nonsense.
Right.
Because what's even the point of comparing these two
If they can't see each other or can't actually fight, like, come on.
if Goku can't see him? It's genuinely just a boring way to compare the characters.
Very boring.
And there
Love
are
it, love the
endless
approach.
counter
Nice one.
arguments to explain why
Nice one,
this wouldn't
Clyde.
even be relevant. Ichigo over the years has gone through an extremely unique development of power, with some of the most vague storytelling you will ever read in Weekly Shonen Jump magazine.
That's like such a weak argument when people go, yeah, but Goku couldn't even see him, so how does he fight him? Ichigo just sneaks up on him and it's like, boo, that's boring.
From street level hollows to battling beings referencing the Bible and other religious texts. I've noticed over the years as someone that's power scaled Bleach since around 2014 that Bleach fans tend to try and negate reasonable power scaling debates by saying things such as spiritual pressure can simply overwhelm a character from another series since they don't have any spiritual pressure of their own. However, in the battle between Dongai, Ichigo and Aizen makes a statement that with enough physical strength, you could theoretically harm a Shinigami.
Right.
Chad, while not even able to see Shrieker at this stage, was able to be useful in his fight alongside Rukia, proving this to be somewhat true.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
possible
that does back
Chad
it
had
up,
a
alright.
slight amount of spiritual pressure here due to his obvious awareness of hollows, but the power pole he swung should not have been an issue, unless what Aizen said was in fact correct. Although Aizen was technically incorrect about what Ichigo had supposedly done with his powers, his point still stands. The reason I never take the aforementioned approach when using Bleach characters in versus battles is because we could make it so that stuff like Hypnosis from Bleach wouldn't work on Dragon Ball characters as they have ki, not spiritual pressure, or Reiatsu, and Aizen claims that battles in Bleach are a battle of spiritual pressure, verbatim. By doing so, it not only overcomplicates these battles, but opens the door to gooning from the other side too. For reference, Goku is able to sense malice from opponents and fight at his peak while in pitch black darkness, similar to what Kenpachi did against Tosen. His current strongest transformation is also based entirely on how amazing his instinct is in combat. Instinct
It's
so
called
great
Ultra
that he can
Instinct.
intercept opponents moving through time stop. We've also seen Dragon Ball characters interact with spiritual beings countless times, from the normal series, anime, games, to movies.
How true.
The ceiling
yeah.
for these weird handicaps of either series just never ends, so in this battle, yes, they can see one another. I don't think there's any fun in comparing Bleach characters to other series if you take this approach. A lot of the time it comes from a position of being disingenuous, so I won't be doing that in this video. Just imagine that Ichigo was traveling to the Soul Society to go hang out with Renji and Rukia, then out of nowhere the cleaner happened to hit him in the ass and he got sent off flying through time and happened to land in the world of Dragon Ball.
Go with that.
So anyway, let's explain how fast Ichigo is and a general look at his power in the same way that I just explained Goku. I will open up by saying this. Speed scaling in Bleach is far more complicated than it is in Dragon Ball, and really does become impacted quite heavily if you factor in that many people tend to misrepresent feats, use ridiculous amounts of calculation stacking, and sometimes the series itself works against the characters when it comes to arguing from the position that they're actually very fast, or even just faster than light itself is the most bare minimum position to take. For example, most of the data book statements about light type attacks in Bleach always merely refer to them as light. but never list them as light speed verbatim.
Right,
One of
yeah,
the
yeah,
closest
just
things we
use the
have
word
to
light
that
a
is a
lot.
French translation of a data book statement that talks of Gin and Toshiro fighting at light speed. If you take a look at the novels for Bleach, though there are some questionable power scaling statements made here or there, the novels seem to treat lightning as unimpressive, and light speed is referenced as a speed they're capable of reaching in combat normally. Hikone, as an example, moved so fast that time slowed down to the point where it seemed as though it had stopped. Along with that, instantaneous movement is a pretty commonly occurring thing within the novels too, showing that lightning shouldn't even be referenced as a major factor in Bleach discussions, as even by using the old Soul Society databook scan of Ichigo versus Byakuya, this is clearly more of a hyperbolic metaphor to make Ichigo look cool in side material. I'll give you an example of how this is also applicable to real life.
Okay.
During Muhammad Ali's legendary career as a boxer,
Cool.
not only did he state himself that he was faster than the speed of light, but newspapers and books about boxing back then compared his movements to the speed of lightning in their official prints.
Right, yeah.
Bruce Lee was also talked about in a similar way, with him famously being referred to as so fast that no camera could ever record his strikes, even though this was because of how old said cameras were at the time. Wielding lightning is such a basic thing for Bleach characters that there are multiple different Kido which can do this, alongside light speed ones that are blocked at point blank range. Though, it's possible to argue from the position that lightning in Bleach scales far faster than it would in real life, which I think most of you listening would agree with. It would be a similar situation to how Gremmy's imagined guns fire relative to the speed of Kenpachi himself, clearly showing that they surpass what a gun could achieve in real life. We would take the position that assumption implies this applies to their other techniques like sound, lightning, or light too, regardless of their visual depiction, unless directly shown or stated otherwise. A similar example of weird writing like this where it's clear someone else took liberty was the writing for the Lightspeed Dispo nonsense in the Tournament of Power.
Yeah, it was weird.
If you're a Dragon Ball super fan, you definitely understand why this was incredibly weird at the time, but just like the Grammy feat and the lightning arguments, you can just simply say that light in Dragon Ball is far faster than it is in real life, and this is actually proven to be true based on what I said earlier, where the light travels across the universe so far and fast that it hits the Kaioshin realm. Now, I am of the belief that Bleach characters are in fact faster than the speed of light and casually, but the multiplication of speed in Bleach is nowhere near as consistent as Dragon Ball, where with just a lowballed calculation, we can get them to not just 10 times faster than light, 100 times faster than light, but 10,000 times the speed of light during the first major arc of Dragon Ball Z. There's even a funny feat where Goku can stand on the Saiyan pod while it's moving at massively faster than light speeds, and shoot a Kamehameha to move the Saiyan pod out of the gravitational pull of a nearby star. King Kai can track the Saiyan pod's movement, but he can't track Goku fighting Frieza. They were fighting at far faster speeds than the Saiyan pod could move. However, let's scale Ichigo from the position that we ignore these external factors I mentioned earlier, because I believe there's a lot of evidence to show he is far faster than you might think.
Cool.
Chapter 49. During the introduction of the Menos Grande Hollows, Ichigo is in a park battling against hundreds of hollows with Uryu. At this time, Ichigo is in his pre-rope broken form, and is what I consider to be one of the weakest iterations of him.
Well, yeah.
Ichigo runs towards the
It's early in
Menos
the series.
and blocks a Seto at point blank range. These Menos Grande are seen to be a level of hollow that a seated officer would need to deal with, and if you think they scale to lieutenants, then the speed of its Zero is relative to the Negacion Light,
Right,
which we
which is
see
just
lieutenants dodge
instantaneous,
in
yeah.
chapter 178. This light is used to rescue Menos, and would need to be inherently fast for that. Genryusai Yamamoto dismisses the idea of doing anything about said light once it saves Aizen and Co., stating they are separated from their world now. In chapter 266, when Rukia battles Ardenero, it's shown that her Kido blasts are actually relative to the same light that Ardenero dodges when it enters the room. Shinigami is shown using light-related Kido, teleportation Kidos, time-stop Kidos. Quincy arrows are referred to as light multiple times in different forms of source material. Aronka and Espada use a technique called Bala, which is stated to be 20 times faster than a Sero. Not all Seros, arrows, and Kido are the same speed. The user, depending on their strength, can make these techniques faster, so keep that in mind. Uryu, back in chapter 91, moves so fast that his shadow is still visible on the very next panel. If we say Bankai and Resurrection multiply your power by 5 to 10 times, going off what Yoruichi and Urahara explain, and Yami or Ulquiorra's second form is 100 times their base forms as they go through 2 transformations, then we could comfortably say that Ichigo is 100 times light speed, because we know that current Ichigo would destroy Ulquiorra and Yami regardless of their second forms. Vasto Lorde Ichigo would, Dangai Ichigo would, Mugetsu Ichigo would, Fullbring Bankai Ichigo would, True Shikai / Bankai Ichigo would, and so would the Horn of Salvation Ichigo.
Goddamn.
Ichigo, while not at full power and mentally nerfed at the time, keeps up with Bullers, which move 20 times faster than a Zero, or in this case, Light. Uryu, who is far weaker than Ichigo, does the same, and Yami states he considers him quick for doing so. Menos Grande are looked at as a threat which powerful Shinigami must deal with, likely Lieutenant or Captain class with more of a higher interpretation. There's even a scene involving the Visors killing a lot of them, being something worth using to measure their power in the manga and anime, and these same aforementioned Shinigami dodge the Negacion, so it's absolutely relative in speed to the Zeros fired by Hollows. Ichigo reacts to the Menos Grande in not just one of his weakest forms, but at point blank range, as stated earlier. Bullers are then 20 times faster than this, with the speed being faster, depending on the caster of said ability. Example, Resurrection Stark's Bullers would be far faster than Yami's if they were to be fired side by side. Let's say, for example, for the sake of argument, Ichigo becomes so strong after his battles with every major villain that his base form is 100 times faster than Light, which we will use for the most narratively consistent scaling, base war Ichigo over second form Ulquiorra. Then his Bankai, or Horn of Salvation form, multiplies his power by 10 to 100 times, making him 1,000 to 10,000 times faster than Light. You could argue that Horn of Salvation is a 100 times multiplier because it's the use of the horned form without Light messing with Ichigo, making the multiplier far more consistent than it was when facing Ulquiorra. Now, although we're not 100% aware if his Shuhakusho has the same ability where depending on how much clothing is on him equals more of his spiritual pressure, but if you take that into account, technically he's going to be even more powerful based on that too, because we're not going to start the battle off with him having half of his clothing blown off. Ulquiorra was able to beat Holified Ichigo in first release very easily, which was a 10 times increase. Then he multiplied that 10 with his second release. 10 times 10 equals 100, so you can definitely give Ichigo some crazy multipliers in these forms, depending upon how you personally interpret the math. The reason I lean towards 10 for Ichigo is because of how he got so much stronger and had faced a mastered Bankai user in the past, along with attaining a mastered holification, a buff in power which according to Kaname Tosen is like having something as good as Bankai, another Bankai master. There are some crazy feats like Aizen's argued teleportation technique, which I would take the stance can be casted faster and more efficiently than teleporting Kido. Senjumaru of the Zero Division is stated to be able to teleport between the gates of her Bankai, and in Bleach movie Hellverse, Ichigo Zeros cover multiple layers of hell, then almost destroy Earth at the same time. Thanks to my friend Marino, he found out there's actually a statement which calls one of these layers infinite in size. The Zero traverses this distance in mere seconds, real time. It would be impossible to give you an exact number on this, but going via the anime screen time, if it truly traveled an infinite distance in seconds, it could be moving at around 14 billion parsecs per second if you were to compare that distance to moving across the observable universe. Obviously, I don't take this stance for my argumentation, but you get the idea. Some may argue that none of this makes Ichigo instantaneous. However, if I was to argue that way, there are arguments to make that Ichigo might actually be faster than Frieza and Goku during their battle, as instant transmission wasn't used until the very next arc, so we don't know for certain if they'd be able to react to it in combat, like how Ichigo would scale to Senjumaru or Aizen's movements. Perfect Cell was shown to have issues with this technique. That's how far it scales into the series before characters started consistently tagging it. As for power, if you scale Ichigo to things like the Sokyoku Blade Databook statement, which is said to overwhelm everything in existence with its mere release, Yuha collapsing the Garganta, which surrounds all universes in Bleach, White destroying multiple layers of hell in Bleach Hellverse, and then almost ending the world, along with Aizen being able to neg a being with just his eyes glancing at it, which doesn't even operate via the laws of physics and can knock you back and forth through time so far that you actually die, then with the most wanked variation of Ichigo, then you can probably argue that he has a decent chance to genuinely teleport and slash Namek Saga Goku in half. He has passive planet level spiritual pressure, And the Zero Division are shown to be able to shake 3 entire realms in Bleach by simply transforming. Literally, not even on purpose, just by accident from transforming. That's why transforming into Bankai for them requires them to wear seals that only lets one at a time do it. This feat does drastically change, however, depending on if you think these realms are only speaking of the celestial bodies like Earth or the Soul Society, but if you factor in their individual stars in space, it could be a multi-universal feat like Yuha's shown later on. For the sake of perspective, just picture Ichigo as a far stronger version of Trunks with his sword for this argument. However, that's only if we grant Ichigo all of these scaling feats, which many could argue only apply to Yuha, or are very situational. It's not as though Ichigo blocked Yuha's direct universal attack. Yuha was clearly stronger in the battle. He had absorbed multiple beings which were by themselves endgame tier individuals.
Yeah.
But there are other wild statements, like for example, White during the battle against Ukiura was stated to not just shake Los Noches, but all of Hueco Mundo from powering up, a place that is stated to contain infinite sand. There's far...
That's madness. Shook infinity. Wow.
far more that I could state here. Though before we do that, let's talk more about Goku. Now, if I was to grant this same level of charity to Goku, you could say many things like, well, Frieza in his second form has on-screen anime statements which say he has the power to destroy the universe. Cell said he had the power to destroy the solar system with a simple Kamehameha, and Cell is listed as a threat to the universe, similar to Frieza, with the same kind of anime statements. By later scaling in the series, Goku can most definitely compete, if not just straight up surpass some of the Ichigo feats mentioned prior. Planetary feats have been possible since the Saiyan Saga, and maybe before that if you want to wait the earlier series. Cell threatened to destroy the solar system, Kid Buu and Broly were clearing out galaxies, Buhan was screaming away the universe, Beerus and Goku almost destroyed the universe from just simply clashing fists, and Goku vs Jiren led to them shaking the world of Void, and Goku summoned what seems to be galaxy from powering up. Those are just to name a few. In Dragon Ball Z Fusion Reborn, Goku screams so loud while transforming into Super Saiyan 3 that he shook heaven and hell. Gogeta, who appears in that same movie, is then compared to the literal embodiment of a Big Bang. Here's another wild Goku feat. Goku and Pikkon fly so far and fast, they fly from the Grand Kai's planet to Hell in minutes on screen. Basically, imagine someone flying across the universe in mere moments, but arguably far further. That's some Silver Surfer, Superman, Thor type insane, unquantifiable, faster than light type speeds. Mecha Cooler has a wild guidebook statement that talks about Cooler being able to perceive Goku's instant transmission.
Which is insane. This always baffles me whenever this, Chuck always brings this up in his, scaling videos. It's like, it's supposed to be instantaneous, yet Cooler can, interfere and interrupt and perceive it. It's like, what?
He literally intercepts him in a space which transcends time itself.
Yeah.
A similar feat is later shown by Goku and Jiren when they fight the Assassin Hit in his time stop ability, which would naturally be far faster, as this isn't just a singular point of instantaneous stopping. This is multiple seconds of time being paused. The reason I bring that up is because this could allow Goku to surpass Ichigo's charitably given instantaneous speed, or the higher interpretation of White Zero. Let's also say we grant Ichigo some universal tier attack power from scaling to Yuha and the higher interpretation of the Zero Division. If this is the most honest interpretation of the characters, Ichigo could genuinely get blitzed and would explode from one of Goku's punches. The difference in speed isn't like, he's double his speed, 50 times faster. Nah, we're talking thousands upon thousands of times faster than Ichigo, and with very casual ki blasts, could destroy the planet they're fighting on. And as far as we're concerned, Ichigo can't breathe in space. He can open the Senkaimon to leave, and we don't know if White even needs to breathe in combat. However, it's still going to be a pain to deal with the planet just randomly exploding in combat.
Yeah,
if things like Remy's amped meteor were shocking, imagine how characters in Bleach would react to Goku just farting out a ki blast and annihilating their entire planet. Sure, in Ichigo's inner world, things do work differently with the breathing factor, but that's only because it's a dream state-like environment. It would be ultra headcanon to assume that he can somehow breathe in space because he can somehow breathe underwater in his inner world. Kenpachi blatantly couldn't breathe in space, and this would be a potential issue. When Goku explains how he escaped planet Namek, the anime version showcases the explosion expanding so far that it can be calculated to be multi-solar system levels of output. Look at how terrified everyone was at the meteor coming down onto the Soul Society from Gremmy, which Gremmy thought was an impressive showing of power, or Yamamoto melting the Soul Society passively. As mentioned earlier, depending on how you personally interpret the Soul Society when referencing Yamamoto's Bankai, the three options are city to countryside, planetary, or universal, because Yamamoto, without a doubt, would be able to stop the Sokyoku. Yamamoto's release of his Zanpakuto has two translations, where it's stated he can reduce all things in the world or universe to ashes. Even Gremmy's argued summoning a galaxy feat doesn't really do anything for Ichigo or Kenpachi when it comes to their output, because all Gremmy did was open up a doorway and then he threw Kenpachi into space to harm him. Then Kenpachi climbed his way back out. We could still grant the maximum interpretation of this feat to Ichigo because, okay, Yuha is clearly stronger than Gremmy, therefore Gremmy scales below Ichigo, therefore Ichigo is galaxy level. But it doesn't feel right to scale things like this so casually, because Gremmy didn't use a galaxy level attack on Kenpachi, he merely threw Kenpachi into an area where he knew he wouldn't be able to breathe.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that needs to be highlighted when it comes to reading Kenpachi versus Gremmy. He wanted to test out different attacks on Kenpachi, and that was one of them. If I summon a building around you, and all you do is cut open a doorway to get out, this doesn't mean that you now have the ability to inherently summon or destroy that entire area around you.
Right,
However, if you truly believe this is a galaxy level feat, as said before, we can scale it to Ichigo via Yuha's scaling chain to him. Depending on the validity of translation, the Muken, which is a place for the worst of criminals to be kept in, an underground prison, it is stated to be infinite in size multiple times. This is very important here, because Kenpachi and Unohana fought there. The narrative was trying to imply that their battle would be so high level that an infinite space to fight inside of would be perfect for them. If you use the most wanked version of Ichigo, then every sword slash is swinging with the capability to accelerate Namek Saga Goku through time until he explodes or dies from aging. Because if Aizen is doing stuff like this with just a mere glance, and true Bankai Ichigo is above this Aizen by multiple folds of multipliers, then every swing he throws can attack with this level of potency to surpass time and space. I'd go so far to say that it would be multiple folds of power superior, because this form of Aizen is nowhere near as strong as Ichigo or the current Aizen is. During the battle between Dangai, Ichigo, and Aizen describes Ichigo as a higher dimensional being when viewing his Mugetsu form, and Ichigo slaps away what Mr. Kubo implies through the dialogue to be a pseudo-black hole. Obviously, these feats are far more complicated than how I've just described them on a surface level. However, I'm going with the higher interpretations for the sake of the argument. We're being charitable with the two characters here, and you can pick and choose what you think sounds the most consistent or just makes the most sense. My general interpretation of the dimensional tiering statement is that there are three ways to interpret this dialogue on the manga page. 1. Aizen was making an analogy based purely on power. Countless times in the series, you'll hear stuff like this character's transcended this guy's in a whole different dimension of power. We've heard that plenty of times in multiple different animes, comics, TV shows, movies, etc. Number 2, Aizen was describing a legitimate scientific comparison between the two. Number 3, Mr. Kubo wanted to convey this dialogue through Aizen to solidify how strong the Mugetsu is, an anomaly amongst the series. This form was only seen one singular time, and the way that Dangai, Ichigo, and Mugetsu was achieved was via a very, very particular set of circumstances taking place. Just keep in mind that Aizen, by destroying the cleaner, accidentally gave Ishin and Ichigo the ability to be like, hold up, we need to train in here.
Yeah, it's like, wait. You know what we could do, right? We could, negate time and just, train here for a while, and it'd be like you've trained for longer. It's like, wow. Pretty cool, thing to do.
Like it's the hyperbolic time chamber.
Yeah.
And that's why Aizen was so confused when he interacted with Ichigo afterwards, because he had no fucking idea what he'd been up to for those previous few hours. The raw
when it was
Japanese
actually
manga
years for Ichigo,
states
it's like,
Aizen
whoa.
plans to crush the very atoms Ichigo is made of. Quincy arrows and certain Keto also have the capability to existence erase things, and those attacks are easily surpassed many a times by higher level characters. Orihime actually rejects the phenomena of existence erasure by Tosin by restoring Grimjar's arm, and then a character like Ukiura can overpower her ability to do this with his spiritual pressure by simply just leaving it on a wound. It's also stated that while in the tower against Ukiura, Ichigo's spiritual pressure is so intense here that Orihime wouldn't be able to withstand being near it, which probably implies that her shield also couldn't do anything about that. This previously mentioned existence erasure would be quite similar to Goku's Hakai technique. The Hakai in Dragon Ball is a technique used by the gods of destruction and can remove you from multiple timelines once it hits you, along with even a gag character like Arale, someone who Goku scales above, not just in the joking sense, but also Toriyama did plan to have Goku be the strongest character at the end of all of this. So just like at the end of Z with post-time skip Z Goku, we're eventually going to see a similar thing happen in Super when it concludes, where Goku will be the top dog. So inherently above Arale, you get the idea.
I'm very intrigued to see what they do with the Black Frieza saga. That's going to be the finale in the Super manga, isn't it? And it was a bit odd that he said like he's hoping for a Super Season 2 announcement. That's not going to happen soon because they're going to get Daima rolled out first, and then they need the guarantee of being able to use content to keep on as a more regular production. So Daima, I think, is going to happen first, and then I think we'll get Super after Daima.
Speaking of that, Goku has been shown to actually withstand attacks of this caliber, and this was in a weaker variation of himself, along with being in just his base form. We've seen Shikai Aizen tank a Keto from Yamamoto that he actually sacrificed his arm to cast. Therefore, I'd absolutely assume that Hado 96, Ito Kaso, surpasses Hado 54, Heian, or at the very least operates in a similar fashion. All attacks in Bleach are imbued with spiritual pressure anyway, so that's usually a buffer in these kind of situations. An example would be Ichigo catching Kuroge's arrow with his bare hands. I'm not saying that this and the Hakai are one and the same, just trying to list some similar examples of events happening in both series that show examples of existence erasure and characters being able to withstand it. So, let's explain some more about Ichigo's power. Ichigo's spiritual pressure could overwhelm everything in existence via the Sokyoku scaling, which can strike with around 36 million Zanpakuto, and Ichigo stopped this in a very weak iteration of himself. In Bleach movie Hellverse, Ichigo ends up wielding the very power of Hell itself, meaning he might be able to have dominion.
Well, that transformation in Hell is so cool, and I'm sure Clyde did a video going over how strong that form is. He's got a habit of getting rid of his videos though, which is a pain in the ass. But I think I've reacted to that a couple of years ago.
Over multiple layers of infinity. Ichigo also could have some kind of infinite power argument due to the Mugen if you want to grant that it is truly infinite, as he scales far beyond Kenpachi and Unohana. Most attacks like Sero's, which have been shown to be able to be caught by bare hands with spiritual pressure, bend time and space, which might mean they ignore Goku's durability like a Destructo Disc does. I feel like there's a clear limit to this though, so I wouldn't take that position myself. Sero's act a lot different than Ki Blast do in both nature and even the way that they sound. Ichigo against Yuha showcased the ability to combine his Getsuga with a Seto to make it pierce Yuha. And if you want to go extra generous, you could say Ichigo truly can cut through anything because of how Kenpachi was able to cut through the weapons of the Miracle, and how he's fighting a guy with the actual powers of miracles after fighting a kid with the power of imagination. As you can see on the screen, there are some crazy statements made about these two, Quincy. When it comes down to it, normal scaling for both series, Goku absolutely blitzes and one-shots, where anytime the debate gets close, we can just grab a version of Goku with superior stats from later on in the series, where characters like Broly and Boo are blitzing around galaxies causing mayhem. To do something like that just by itself puts them on such a high category of speed that we're talking about an unquantifiable amount of massively faster than light speeds just to even do something like blow up a heap of planets in a galaxy. Wanked Ichigo with all feats given to him and interpreted hyper literally, he wins in one strike easily. Goku may not be able to even harm or interact with him in his quote-unquote 5-6D tier state. However, because weaker characters can still fight and interact with higher tiers in Bleach, it's hard to say it's truly a difference in dimensional tiering. They can see them, but can't perceive his spiritual pressure. That's about the limit to things. But even then, I just want to make this absolutely crystal clear. Any form of base Goku which appears after the Buu saga to the current anime, movie, or manga chapters, it's genuinely, no exaggeration, like comparing a singular grain of sand to the size of the universe. That's how much stronger Goku is than his Namek Saga self, or how he performs in the Cell Saga and Buu Saga. For Bleach fans unaware, in Dragon Ball there are special earrings known as the Potara earrings. These are used by Goku and Vegeta to fuse into a being known as Vegito. Hypothetical Super Saiyan 1 Vegito was easily above Buuhan collapsing the universe, and Vegito was teasing and baiting Buuhan into going ballistic.
Yeah, and Buuhan is the strongest version of Buu.
If you pay attention to the fight, he's not exactly taking it very seriously. Super Saiyan 2 Vegito and Super Saiyan 3 Vegito would then naturally scale roughly 2 to 8 times above this. The multipliers are quite different depending on translation and guidebooks used, but they're around that level of power. If you're a fan of Naruto, imagine Buu's causing a universal-sized Kamui. He then places this power into himself, and Vegeta claps him. This feat by itself could be interpreted as 4D and low multiversal. Prior to this, Super Buu screams so intensely that it allowed him to escape the hyperbolic time chamber. This is an area where time inside is far different than on the outside. Years can go by inside while only a few days go past outside. Goku stated a hypothetically stronger Vegito, Super Saiyan 3 included in the reference, wouldn't be able to stop Beerus. They didn't even attempt the fusion. Beerus right now in the manga is still considered a top tier character and a benchmark for the main cast to aim for. In the Dragon Ball Super Battle of Gods anime and manga, they're stated universal with mere clashes of fists. The narrator even implies it alongside what's going on, and Goku then, without realizing, absorbs that level of power into himself during the battle with Beerus. Considering Buuhan was a threat to the universe, and Vegito can easily reach 10 times this power, this makes current Goku and Beerus absolutely ridiculous, especially if you factor in how large the Dragon Ball universe is actually stated to be. They were already above this Vegito at the start of Dragon Ball Super, and now they've gone through multiple arcs of training, transformations, and general power. In the Tournament of Power, they warp and affect the Infinite World of Void. In earlier moments, Kid Buu and Broly travel across galaxies at quintillion times FTL speeds. In the Dragon Ball Z movie Fusion Reborn, I stated this a little bit earlier, Goku shakes hell and heaven in just Super Saiyan 3. This isn't even including what Gogeta does later, and it can be felt all the way to the Grand Kai's planet. The Mecha Cooler feat from before would easily place his speed far above any form of teleportation in Bleach shown thus far. This could also be interpreted as a immeasurable speed feat. Goku even notes that he can...
God damn, this video is so good. It's covering, like, everything. I love it. This is boss.
...back and recognize instantaneous speed, meaning his brain perceives infinite speed. This happens in the Super Manga. Granola can also react to instant transmission and tag it. Kid Buu was showcased doing a similar thing much earlier than the Super Manga, where he essentially blew up a planet before they could completely teleport to the Kai's planet. Dragon Ball Super has a similar feat where Goku can temporarily exist in an area that has literally nothing present, no time or space. How is he even breathing? I don't fucking know.
We don't know.
Ichigo also appears in a similar space with Senna in Bleach, Memories of Nobody, which the author considers canon. It's referenced in the manga. Also the best Bleach movie. There's even other feats shown in the Super Manga of other characters surpassing the speed of instant transmission a few different times, so it's become a bit of a consistency to be moving that fast in the series. And again, even those speed feats which I'm mentioning are genuinely nothing compared to what Goku could do in Mastered Ultra Instinct or what Gohan does in the current manga. Dragon Ball's macrocosm is stated to potentially have higher dimensions that reside within it, and depending on who you ask, certain people accept it and certain people don't, just like how only certain people accept the higher dimensional scaling arguments for Bleach. The main point of mentioning these things isn't because I necessarily agree with them, but just to lay out the possibilities of things that could be used in argumentation. Ichigo does have some very interesting theories about his true Bankai, which may assist him in this battle, but I'm trying to be as narratively consistent with both series as possible. We don't actually know what the true Bankai's ability is yet. We just know that Yuha did not want to fuck with it. If the fella who has the power...
It was just like, no, thank you. I'd rather not. Let's get that out of the equation.
...to change infinite future possibilities with just a wave of his hand and collapse the whole universe multiple times over. If he's scared of it, it's got to be insanely fucking overpowered. Ichigo also being considered a candidate to replace the Soul King, along with Shunsui saying he wouldn't be able to exist in the world of the living anymore after the training in the Soul Palace, or he will naturally harm the world, is extremely powerful. The idea that Ichigo could replace the Soul King or fit a role that puts him in the same level of power, hypothetically, means his body could withstand universal tiers of power, literally holding the universal universes themselves together. You guys remember how overpowered the Hogyoku was and how it could basically grant anything to the will of the user, essentially infinite power, making Aizen immortal to even an attack which according to him was on a different dimensional plane of power. That object's existence was created simply from a few nails of the Soul King.
Whoa.
And Ichigo is being compared to potentially replacing that being.
Yo, alright.
When it comes to their martial arts prowess, Ichigo's best feats are in his swordsmanship, being able to best Shinigami that have over 3,000 years of experience, with even Retsu Unohana being stated to know 8,000 styles, and all flows in existence. After the training Ichigo participates in against Urahara and Yoruichi, along with the multiple battles in the Soul Society arc, he finds himself easily surpassing them and learning techniques mid-battle. It also helps that he's not only born from a royal bloodline, the Shiba clan, but his mother is a purebred Quincy, and he has a prototype Black Hollow merged into his Shinigami powers. Keep that in mind, by the way, Bleach fans. White isn't actually the same as all the other Hollows. That's why Ishin is so shocked when he sees it. As for hand-to-hand combat, in a similar fashion, not only was Goku competing with the greatest martial artists on all of Earth as just a teenager, but right now is besting combatants that have lived for millions of years with fighting styles that are completely alien to him. Literally. Ichigo's best physical martial arts feats are beating Shinigami who are trained in their Hakuda fighting style and competing with Tatsuki, a state-level karate fighter in Japan. Beyond this, there isn't actually much more to say due to a lack of feats being present. Him beating up random street thugs holds no relevance to who he's up against in this video. Goku clearly has the edge anytime a sword is not involved. Now that Goku also has his Ultra Instinct and Susanoo avatar form, it makes the martial arts aspect even more hard to argue Ichigo has a chance in that department. Goku whipping out a solar flare mid-combat, after images, muffle bar ceiling, and countless other techniques from original Dragon Ball would also further complicate the prospect of them fighting hand-to-hand. There is a cool fun fact though, in chapter 424 of Bleach, Tatsuki actually asks Ichigo if he has her copy of Tekken, which he was clearly borrowing from her to play. At the time of this chapter's release, it's likely that he was playing Tekken 6, because Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was the closest Tekken to release during these specific chapters in 2011/2012. As she states on the manga page, the next one's coming out soon. Along with that, the director of Tekken, Katsuhiro Harada, considers Bleach his favorite manga. I'd love to see them add someone like Chad, Yoruichi,
That'd be so cool to see Bleach character
Ace
in
Grimjow,
Tekken.
or even Kensei. Surprisingly too, Yamamoto was throwing hands pretty well when he battled Wonderwise, so maybe consider him now that Heihachi's gone. I don't know, could be cool. If they do decide to add Ichigo purely for name value, as he is the main character after all, and it would boost sales for Tekken, I am quite curious who you guys would want to see them add to Tekken's guest character from Bleach. Noctis from Final Fantasy was pretty cringe with his weapons in Tekken 7, but it actually shows you that maybe Ichigo could operate pretty well within the game, even with his Zanpakuto. Ideally, if there is an anime guest character in Tekken as DLC, we'd probably want Baki in the game, but let me know who you would want to see from Bleach.
Bit off topic this, but alright. It's pretty cool.
At the end of the day, here is the general issue with the matchup between Goku and Ichigo.
Okay.
With Bleach, I have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to consistently wank the verse to early arcs of Dragon Ball Z. With Dragon Ball, it's just blatantly shown many times what they can or can't do. Then they surpass those feats to a level that's almost unquantifiable. The universal feats showcased against Beerus are nothing compared to what Goku is doing in the current manga and what he did against Jiren. It's truly mind-blowing how much stronger Goku is than that previous Goku, who had surpassed all feats presented in Dragon Ball Z. Like I mentioned earlier with the invisible Bleach characters, key control does exist, and that's why a lot of the time things don't get blown up
Yeah,
by
they don't just
accident in
destroy
Dragon Ball
everything
fights.
when they attack
This
each other,
similar
yeah,
concept also applies in Bleach, where Grimmjow and Ichigo don't accidentally destroy Los Noches with the release of a Gran Rey Zero.
Yeah, like, they have rules, don't they? It's like, you're not allowed to do this, otherwise they just destroy everything, and it's just like,
This is an area, by the way, that's so large you can't even see the horizon, and it has an artificial sun inside of it. Most likely a pocket dimension created by Aizen to replicate a normal sky, due to it always being nighttime in Hueco Mundo. The anime on more than one occasion shows that this area is so fucking large that it not only stretches on as far as the eye can see without any curvature, but it has clouds floating in the sky. There's a lot of times where characters do recognize the potential disaster certain attacks could have in Dragon Ball, but they purposely control them to not do said thing. And by the way, I must address that the anime and some other selected material, for the most part, coincide with the canonicity of Dragon Ball altogether. Both Akira Toriyama and Toei Animation have stated to treat them as one and the same a few different times over the years. Even without all that extra content, it still really makes no difference to the outcome of the battle anyway. But it's necessary to clarify this for those who may have an issue with me using it. The same can apply to Bleach, therefore Ichigo would lose many feats, like how he could potentially wield the entire power of Hell, or scale to the Quinn, which can influence time, space, the dimension it is within. Each and every phenomena of reality can be manipulated by this divine item. Whoever controls it possesses the power of a god within its domain. The power to create and destroy is only the beginning of its power. However, with all that being said, the current anime adaptation of Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, which is being supervised by the author, keeps referencing the previous anime in endless flashbacks.
Yeah, it does.
So its canon appears to now supersede the manga's authority, especially because there are moments taking place in this current anime that don't actually take place in the manga. We've even seen storyboards shown off which Mr. Kubo drew specifically for the anime staff. During the production of this video, I did originally intend to have a section dedicated to their regeneration capabilities because Ichigo has been shown to heal arms within split seconds, heal from death, and has things like his Blute Vein for defense, a Quincy technique. However, I will be honest, I don't believe this would be relevant at all to the battle because there won't be a scenario where either of them will get the chance to heal. Of course, you could do that for the sake of storytelling and write like a narrative-based fight here, which would just be fun to watch or read. But realistically, the Blute Vein is just going to add like some armor to Ichigo as if he's playing GTA, so... Goku has been shown to heal in Super Saiyan God and even fix a destroyed heart during combat, though because of how they could kill each other with singular blows, if you go with the higher interpretations, I don't see a scenario where it's worth even making an argument for this. It's incredibly situational and more so based on how this would be perceived, once again, through like a narrative-related fight where there's an animation or a manga written about this. I'll put it to you like this, if Goku uses his strongest form and attack, or Ichigo activates an even stronger, more purified Mugetsu than the one against Aizen, chances are their goal is to end the battle in one strike.
Yeah, they're trying to get it done.
Adding to what I said earlier. That being said, before I conclude this video and give you the answer as to who I think wins this, did you know that when Bleach's first prototype chapters were initially rejected by Shonen Jump magazine, which was submitted after Zombie Powder, Mr. Kubo's first major series was canned, Akira Toriyama heard about the rejection and actually wrote Mr. Kubo.
Yes, I always tell people, like, Akira Toriyama was the reason Bleach actually existed, man.
A letter of encouragement to not give up on his concept of Bleach because he could see that it had major potential.
Yeah, what a dude.
It's possible Akira Toriyama used his influence to actually ask Shonen Jump to give his next draft a chance. Who are they to argue with the man who turned anime into a household name?
Yeah.
Though this is argued to merely be rumor, if it's true, it's genuinely amazing to think that Dragon Ball essentially helps Bleach even exist in the first place. Whenever I stream on Twitch, a very commonly asked question I receive is, how far would Ichigo get in Dragon Ball? Hopefully this video answers that and also this matchup, which is highly debated upon with Bleach's recent resurgence in popularity. There's plenty of alternative ways to scale Ichigo, and hopefully this video gives you all a general idea of how I feel about higher and lower ways to measure it. Mind hacks didn't seem like something super necessary in this video, as Goku rarely ever uses these kind of things and is predominantly a physical and speed-based fighter, just like Ichigo. If we also grant Goku access to his Dragon Ball hero scaling, things just become absolutely insane, with characters from this being argued to be hyperversal and on a far superior dimensional tiering than anyone from either mainline story. Realistically, if you said Yuha was going to cause a multi-universal level attack, with power cliffing from arc to arc and the massive multipliers of transformations, even Super Saiyan 3 Vegito has far superior feats than Yuha, and he is genuinely a character that would get one-shot by base Goku right now in the story. There are also a good 20 to possibly 50 other things that I could go into for both series. Some examples being, even after Goku transforms into Super Saiyan, Mecha Cooler can still tag this 50 times faster instant transmission. Even if instant transmission isn't getting multiplied directly, the fact is, he can take something that's another 50 times increase in combat speed and react to it. Mecha Cooler also, within the space of the instant transmission being used, appears within that and then uses his own instant transmission, which is insane. When it comes to Bleach, I could talk about stuff like some of the crazy Los Noches destroying multipliers with transformations. For me personally, there does become a stage where it steps so far out of the realm of author intent that it's a bit ridiculous, so I didn't want to include, say, a hypothetical, well, I ran the math and the data and I got the Los Noches multipliers based on Ulquiorra's transformations and all the other Espada to be 10,300 times Los Noches in diameter when it comes to their ability to destroy shit passively. I just think, like, once you get to that level of, you know, stacking all the math, it becomes a little ridiculous. So I wanted to lean more towards the more, you know, country, continental, planetary, galaxy, universal, etc. Because stuff like that is a lot more in your face in terms of evidence, and we don't really need to speculate over the math. So you get the idea. If you want to take that approach, you're welcome to. It's just something that I'm not going to be doing for a video like this, because why would I talk about a country-sized area or larger when I could just discuss the fact that the higher tiers in Bleach are doing some pretty crazy shit, like waving their hands and almost destroying universes. So not super relevant for the video, but for those of you who are curious, there you go. I mean, hey, if you want to take the ball and run down the field, who knows, maybe Los Noches is absolutely fucking ridiculous in size. It's got its own sun inside of it. It's clearly a pocket dimension inside, hence why it's so big on the inside, but you can visually see it on the outside in terms of how big it is and know how large it is from eye view. As mentioned earlier in the video, when it comes to being able to see Bleach characters, Gohan can actually fight while completely blind, unable to sense his opponents, and is dying from poison. And then Piccolo fought an invisible character in the Tournament of Power, so I don't think there's any issues when it comes to the invisibility part. Should be clear by now. The Mimihagi's speed
I do appreciate that he's used facts of, like, you know, if they are invisible, then because he's gone this whole thing of, like, let's ignore that, but then it's like, if you actually take it into account, it shouldn't really be an argument, because they can sense ki, they've fought actual invisible, like, fighters, blah.
Depends entirely on how you interpret the distance and travel time. I've seen some people barely get it to light speed when they do their calculations, then others to thousands of times light speed. There's also another point of contention, which is the time it took for Ichigo to fly from the Soul Palace to the Soul Society. Now in Bleach, Sonito and Shunpo can be used over very large distances. Examples would be Stark and Ulquiorra. They both use a Sonito across Los Noches and reach their destination in literally one page. Then Yamamoto and Shunsui basically appear from one side of the Soul Society to another within just mere moments.
Yeah, they're just
obviously even faster, but depending on if you think that Ichigo's travel speed and combat speed are absolutely 1-to-1, no difference, and you want to downplay the speed based on how big the distance is, which we fully don't know exactly how large he actually flew, then you can get various outcomes on what his speed could be based on that. In Bleach Hellverse, when Ichigo re-enters Hell, he actually flies so far and fast that he basically hits the bottom layer of Hell, and that was only in moments, so if you want to basically do the math for his speed based on that, then you can come to some really crazy stuff, but I'll leave that part there. Amongst the Royal Guard of Yuha, there is a Quincy or Stern Ritter by the name of Levebara,
Oh god, here we go.
the X-Axis. Now this guy's got some pretty crazy speed-related stuff because he has a gun where instead of shooting a normal bullet at you, or Quincy bullet arrow, reishi gun, however you'd want to put it, anything he aims at, once he clicks the trigger, there is no delay between where the barrel is aimed and what it hits. What it pretty much is the concept of shooting. It's meant to be sort of a conceptual attack where whatever's aimed at, boom, is instantly
Just
blown apart, cannot be blocked. It's depicted that way very blatantly in the series. That's why when he aims the gun at Nimaya, Nimaya jumps in front of Yuha, but it only hits Nimaya. He's also the embodiment of light. That's his secondary ability.
God
where
damn,
he's
yeah, it gets
basically
crazy with
Zara
these
from
Quincy's.
One
I
Piece,
can't wait.
And
Mate,
you can either just
can't
say
wait for part 3 to see how ridiculous the stuff. Like even what's the Thor looking guy where every time you kill him he just keeps coming back. It's like, what's going on? And then it's just like, oh, there's no way of actually defeating this enemy, so Yuha just absorbs everyone's. I can't wait to see it all.
straight up light speed, or you can say that his gun has some absolutely crazy speed related statements that are intertwined with said ability. The problem is that the bullets themselves never get dodged, so there's not really much to say, but if you want another cool thing to reference in Bleach when it comes to speed, his gun is ridiculous. Throughout the novels, there are countless other statements in regards to speed and strength too, so anything that I've forgotten, feel free to remind me in the comments, but if you go and read them yourselves, you'll probably find even more stuff than I will, but that is to be noted. Throughout the process of doing research for this video, I noticed that during the Gremmy versus Kenpachi fight, there was actually some pretty interesting things said, which I haven't really seen anyone put emphasis on before. So, when Gremmy accesses a space to throw Kenpachi inside of, he's essentially accessing the space which is above the Soul Society, or around the Soul Society, if you want to put it like that. The very fact that Kenpachi implies he's never cut a meteor before also implies he knows what a meteor is,
right?
Implying that the Soul Society does have its own universe around it, very similar to Earth.
Okay, it's very interesting.
Therefore, making the Zero Division's Bankais insanely stronger than most think. So, yeah, just think about that for a second. During the Fullbring arc, from merely transforming into Bankai, Ichigo blows up a replica of Earth and potentially even a larger area than just Earth itself, as there is an actual sun which is visible inside. This would scale consistently with stuff like Aizen being able to make Los Noches, which I'm just going to take the stance he could definitely create a much larger area than Yukio could with his, little video game ability, but for consistency's sake, there are 3 examples that we can list right now. There is a situation in the novels in regards to Grimmjow versus the sun itself. Los Noches itself, which contains an artificial sky and sun, can be destroyed via the release of a Resurrection of an Espada 4 and above, which is pretty crazy considering how that would scale to late game characters. And then there is Ichigo completely blowing up Yukio's replication of the Earth and Sun, and potentially even more if you want to go further than that, but still absolutely crazy he can just passively do that. Although this isn't super relevant to Ichigo, the Soul King does have endless statements about how strong he is and just the countless amount of hacks that he has too, so stuff like what you can see on the screen is just an example of how strong that guy is, and if you want to say that Ichigo can fill the role of the...
Curiously, their different motives led them to the same goal, to separate the current world. There would be a Reishi world, a Kishi world, and also a Sand Paradise that would be the destination of the hollows both worlds produced. Or, alternatively, other forms of worlds might come to being, but what was most important was to have worlds with a clear distinction between life and death. In order to make the separation of the 3 realms reality, they required the power of the man who had to strengthen
Soul King at some stage, or he's implied to replace him and be the linchpin to the universe, and so on and so forth, then yeah, you can just attribute those things to Ichigo too, and would have some very big implications. There are some interesting little statements in movie 1 of Bleach where there's a planetary feat which a lot of people always bring up. I don't think it's really that crazy, but there are stuff later in the movie which is pretty wild, like there being implied to be infinite realms in Bleach, which might make Yuha and Ichigo far stronger than I've even depicted.
Like, I feel like this movie is canon. Like, it fits into the story. And the anime even has a flashback moment to a moment that happens in the movie. And the end of the movie, everyone loses their memories, yeah.
In this video, but again, pretty complicated stuff, really depends on how you interpret it, but if you want to say they can destroy infinite universes, then pretty crazy. Genryusai Yamamoto's Bankai has a few different translations of the different steps of his Bankai, where it basically implies he's able to resurrect trillions of souls, which is wild. Aizen's powers are stated to surpass logic and reason, which if taken hyperliteral could mean he's truly a dimension above what he views in his world, and has surpassed absolutely any ability, feat, concept, etc. that he is cognitively aware of. Just keep this in mind, The cunt is pretty much 300 plus years old, maybe even more depending on how you think the timeline lines up with when he was a kid. So he most definitely has some knowledge on a few things here or there. And throughout the series, it's been pretty well established that Mayuri and Urahara are the only two who seem to rival his intelligence to any degree. Hyosue Ichibe not only has authority over names and can insert himself into things via them, but can also control the concept of the color black, and this is a character that Ichigo scales above. According to Yuha's incredibly cryptic language, he implies that Ichigo has pretty much surpassed all infinite potential futures, which he can pick and choose from at any time that he wants. Yuha's abilities are so overpowered that he can look into the future, pick a grain of sand of any of these infinite realities, and go with the best one and just change it at his whim.
Do that. It's just crazy. I can't wait to see the anime do all this.
Able to surpass this. Along with Aizen, who had hypnosis so strong that he was able to passively affect all of those infinite realities too. The multiplier of the Mugetsu form, which Ichigo should be able to
give us Aizen's Bankai in the anime. Do it. When Ichigo and Aizen fight Yuha, just go crazy with it. Just go mental.
Use right now, because nothing in the series implies that he can't do so. It's just that if he was to use it, he's going to lose his Shinigami powers again. But the multiplier would most likely lean to be in the thousands, because Aizen's brain can't even comprehend its existence. He was making statements like that about just Dongai Ichigo. He couldn't sense the ceiling of his power throughout the whole battle, even after he transformed. The only reason that he landed any blows on Dongai Ichigo is because he allowed it to happen. Ichigo was not in the best mindset at all. You could just see it on his expression. He was pissed the fuck off. And that being said, Mugetsu appears. Aizen freaks out. He can't even imagine that something like this even exists. So I'm sure it leans more towards the thousands, if not more, as opposed to hundreds, because the Resurrection multipliers are already argued to be in that 10 through 100 range anyway. So the Mugetsu itself could be this thing that he whips out in the battle against Goku, and he just becomes exponentially stronger, way beyond comprehension, but it's all just, up to skepticism at that stage. Now, I wasn't sure if this was super necessary to mention throughout the video, but it's possible that Ichigo knows Pesquisa, which is a sensory ability to react to attacks. If he does, it'll make him a little bit snappier throughout the bout, but it seems to be the case that he probably doesn't know that. That's more of an Espada, Aronka type technique. It's very possible that White knows how to do it, but again, it's not really going to make much of a difference, so I didn't think it was really worth mentioning, along with stuff like his other sensory abilities, like being able to sense Ukiura instantly across Las Noches, or detect these spirit ribbons across Karakura Town, etc., etc. It's sort of similar to stuff that Goku can do anyway, so I don't really think it's that crazy, but yeah. If you want to grant it to Ichigo, you can. When it comes back to Goku, everything that he's done throughout every single major arc, every major series, these things can be multiplied by hundreds to thousands of times, if not hundreds of thousands. So many times higher that honestly it's impossible to accurately work out with proper math, but he is genuinely so much stronger right now in the series compared to even his end of Buu Saga self that it's just crazy to think about. An interesting counter-argument to the time acceleration position could be made with the Dragon Ball special, where Bardock, after being hit by Frieza's supernova attack, survives said attack and is sent so far back through time that he runs into Frieza's relative, Shield. This takes place in Dragon Ball, episode of Bardock. Characters in Dragon Ball are now traveling across massive distances far more commonly throughout the series,
so.
with Whis doing it, Gas doing it, Icon doing it, Frieza doing it, etc. Then with current Goku having a base form that scales to some of these feats, and about 7 different transformations with massive multipliers that affect both his speed and strength, Goku's linear travel speed and combat speed easily has the potential to be regarded as infinite speed by many, based solely on the fact of how consistently this stuff is happening throughout the series. Interestingly, Ichigo in the Soul Society arc, depending on translation, cuts a few 100 million blades, which were sent at him by Byakuya. Byakuya claims that he can also increase the speed of these attacks by using the palms of his hands. Most calculations that people have actually done on this feat usually get them to be light speed or relative to light speed, and that's usually while using a low base speed for the calculation of, say, hypersonic or lightning, etc. But if you think that their base speed is already light speed inherently, and then Byakuya increases that speed, You can calculate the Ichigo blitz to insane levels of speed that early in the story, especially because Byakuya claims that Ichigo cut all of them. In regards to canon content used throughout the video, feel free to disregard certain things. I just wanted to show the most exaggerated versions of both characters to
it makes
showcase
sense.
how
Yeah,
wild
yeah.
both characters
How
are
out
portrayed
there it
in
is.
their respective series. I'm not taking the stance that anything is necessarily definitive. I just want to make sure that everybody sees some of the cool things that both of them do. I believe a point that should be considered when really thinking about how fast these characters are in their later iterations is that Goku is so many times faster than a lot of other anime characters that their brains could not process his movements before he backhands their heads off. It's not something that's a small number either, because in some cases he has genuinely become millions to straight up infinitely faster than said characters. This also applies to Ichigo too, because in Ichigo's case, imagine the feat against Byakuya, which was very early in the story, but then imagine him walking up to a My Hero Academia character in his far stronger war form or adult form. Within a simple flick of his wrist, he could slash them billions of times before they'd realize it has even happened.
Wow.
And this is the level of speed that Bleach characters are passively fighting at in all of the fights, without us even realizing from mere depictions on paper or how they're animated. It's actually quite intimidating to consider that if a Bleach character was in front of you, especially a captain, they could likely just move their hand and you would get turned into mincemeat. And the final note, which I'll leave at the end of the video for stuff that I didn't want to leave out, Goku would have gag character scaling, if you want to use that in the matchup, as he does scale above Arale, which is a gag character from one of Akira Toriyama's older series. But we will leave the extra notes there. Feel free to add your own in the comments below. The winner of this battle, you may ask, consistent Dragon Ball Super Goku, or Fate Manipulation Bankai, multiversal, instantaneous, 1 million multiplier amped perfected Mugetsu, time stop, 6D Ichigo with access to all movie buffs and higher interpretations of power. What can I say? People love to see main characters battle it out. This has been an incredibly fun video to make. Feel free to share your thoughts below, especially if I missed anything, as I said earlier. I do respect your opinions. I will read them when they're left below. And I'm sure even with a video this long, I've missed some things here and there. My main goal when it comes to making a video like this is just to do my best, so I hope that I at the very least entertain you all. With the passing of Akira Toriyama, it lit a flame under me to continue the production of this video, which I started scripting in June of 2023. Dragon Ball Z is the reason that I'm even here talking into this microphone, and it formed the entirety of my childhood and teenage years. I'll never forget waking up in the early hours of the morning before school to watch Cheese TV here in Australia, so I could watch Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and of course, Dragon Ball Z. I, just like many out there, had the early 2000s essentially shaped all thanks to Dragon Ball Z, and I'm incredibly thankful to the works that Akira Toriyama put out there, and thanks to him, my other favorite works exist because of his influence and inspiration. Regardless of who you personally think wins, they are both strong as fuck. The winner is Goku.
Yeah, I believe so.
Mr. Tite Kubo. It would be strange to write a diary without mentioning this, so I'll just talk about something serious. Personally, I don't feel any loneliness or pain. I'm not saying there aren't any at all, but there aren't as many as I thought. It's the death of someone I've read since I was a child, someone who works in the same magazine as me, and someone I'm deeply influenced by. So it feels different than when I deal with death in general. But that's why I feel like it doesn't exist. I've never really talked about this to anyone, but I've always believed that creating things means expanding your sensibilities and expanding your life. This is because I believe that as long as the work exists, the author is not dead. And I believe that being able to properly get used to this feeling is proof of the magnitude of the work's existence that remains in my heart. That's all. From the next post, I will continue with my usual enthusiasm.
Wow. Aww. Why'd you have to throw that in and make it emotional at the end, Clyde? No! Oh, I nearly cried. But that was really good. I like how many examples he used from both things and just... Yeah, that was so well put together. And it's a shame we never got, because we obviously had that Seth and Clyde drama and everything. And we were meant to have the Goku versus Ichigo fight, and the preview looked freaking amazing. But still, that's cool. Cool look at it. And well done. The editing, everything was great, Clyde. Nice one. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch patron-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series. God damn it. Links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is the last, but to help support the channel, it's greatly appreciated. Thanks for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? You guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys next time. Become a member. Click that join button. See my videos early.